Hello and welcome to Investment Insight. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Now let's break down what's happening in the markets today in a clear and simple way.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So for today's deep dives, we are looking at the space economy. And, specifically, we want to tailor this for you, the everyday American investor.
Right, because things are shifting rapidly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are looking at a whole new economic landscape right now. I mean, under the current Trump administration here in 2026, there is just this massive sweeping focus on infrastructure and regulatory efficiency.
Huge focus.
Yeah. And today we are looking at how that specifically applies to space. Because according to recent analysis, this whole space economy thing, it is no longer just about, billionaires building rockets to go to Mars.
No, not at all.
It's actually about a totally new type of infrastructure, something
Yeah.
that will directly connect to the smartphone that is sitting in your pocket right now.
That's the real paradigm shift here.
So, okay, let's unpack this a bit. I want you to imagine if every cell phone tower in America suddenly just floated 300 miles up into the sky. That is the shift we were talking about today.
It really is. And to understand why the government is, basically changing the rules of space right now, we first have to understand the technology that's forcing this change.
Right.
Looking at the data, the industry refers to it as D2D, direct-to-device.
D2D, okay. Break that down for someone who maybe isn't a tech expert.
Sure. So simply put, D2D is when standard everyday smartphones connect directly to a satellite.
Wait, like without any extra gear?
Exactly. Without needing a special dish bolted to your house or an antenna on your car, the satellites acting as these D2D nodes are equipped with, have these massive phased array antennas. They are incredibly sensitive.
Okay.
So sensitive that they can pick up the low power signal of a normal phone. It effectively eliminates dead zones globally.
Wow.
Yeah, and it creates this massive backup network, not just for your phone, but for everyday IoT devices, the Internet of Things.
Right, like smart sensors.
Exactly. Agricultural sensors, autonomous cars moving freight, and critically emergency services.
Okay, so this is huge, which means there's obviously a corporate space race going on here. Who is actually winning this right now?
Well, according to the current data, SpaceX's Starlink is currently leading the pack by a wide margin. As of March 2026, they have roughly 10,000 satellites in orbit.
10,000. That's a lot of metal up there.
It is, and they have over 6 million customers spread across 140 countries. Plus, the FCC recently approved them to operate an additional 7,500 of their Gen 2 satellites.
Okay, they are dominating. But Amazon is in this too, right?
Oh, Amazon is moving incredibly fast to catch up. Based on the research data, Amazon actually agreed to buy Globalstar back in April.
Right, I remember seeing that headline.
Yeah, it was an $11.57 billion acquisition, and they did that specifically to acquire Globalstar's 24 satellites and their established D2D capabilities.
Wow.
Amazon's stated goal is to deploy 3,200 satellites by 2029 just to challenge Starlink.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the everyday investor? I mean, is this just a heavyweight boxing match between two massive tech companies? Like, are we just watching the modern version of railroad barons building tracks across America?
That's a great analogy, actually. But what's fascinating here is that D2D completely redefines what telecom coverage even means.
How so?
Well, the real winner in this market isn't just the company that builds the rocket. It's the company that builds the invisible infrastructure that legacy telecom companies are going to be forced to rely on.
Oh, I see. So the terrestrial telecom companies need this space network to stay competitive.
Exactly. But building this railroad in the sky, launching thousands of satellites, it brings us to the single biggest roadblock for all of these companies.
Which is what? Physics?
No, government paperwork.
Ah, of course.
Yeah, getting regulatory approval is the real bottleneck. But looking at the data, the FCC, which is currently led by Brendan Carr, they are totally overhauling space regulation.
Interesting. How are they doing that?
Historically, getting an FCC license for a satellite was a default to no, customized review process. It was painstakingly slow. Every application was hand-checked.
Like going to the DMV, but for $1 billion spaceship.
Exactly like that. But now they are shifting to a standardized, predictable, default to yes framework.
Okay, a default to yes framework.
Yeah, the FCC Space Bureau actually refers to this internally as a licensing assembly line. And it's working. The data shows they had already cleared 52% of the satellite application backlog by early 2025.
Wow, over half the backlog.
And there's a massive vote on this whole licensing overhaul scheduled for July 22, 2026.
Okay, let me jump in here, though, because I can hear a listener asking this right now. why should someone who's just trying to learn about economics and investing care about FCC paperwork? Like, does the speed of a government bureaucrat stamping a form really matter that much to the market?
It matters more than almost anything else. In the space economy, regulatory speed is the cost of capital.
Okay, explain that.
Sure, think about it from the perspective of a startup. If a company has to wait, say, 3 years for an FCC approval, their entire business plan basically collapses.
Because they're bleeding money waiting around.
Exactly. They have to prepay for the rockets, they have to prepay for the manufacturing, the insurance, the engineers. If you sit in a regulatory waiting room for years, you go bankrupt.
Right.
So these new FCC rules, they aren't just some Wild West deregulation. They are about standardizing the rules so businesses can actually present a realistic timeline to investors, raise capital, and launch faster. It levels the playing field.
Okay, that makes sense. So the government is basically clearing the runway, letting you launch satellites faster.
Yeah.
But here's the catch, right? Launching a beautiful high-tech satellite is totally useless if you aren't legally allowed to broadcast a signal back to Earth.
You hit the nail on the head.
Which brings us to, according to recent analysis, the most valuable asset in space, spectrum.
Yes, spectrum is the new oil.
The new oil. Okay, what exactly is spectrum for our listeners?
Frequency spectrum is simply the legal right to use specific radio waves to transmit data. And the FCC recently reaffirmed the exclusive rights of existing license holders for specific D2D frequencies.
So they are protecting the incumbents?
Very much so.
Yeah.
They are blocking new competitors from just jumping into those specific frequency lanes. This legal certainty, by the way, is exactly why Amazon was willing to spend nearly $12 billion on Globalstar.
Oh.
Yeah, they didn't just want those 24 aging satellites. They wanted Globalstar's MSS frequency rights, the legal right to broadcast.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Think about it like an FM radio dial in your city, right? If a classic rock station legally owns the 97.1 FM frequency, you can't just set up a microphone in your garage and broadcast your own podcast over them. Right, you jam their signal and break the law.
Exactly. So investing in space isn't just about counting who has the most satellites up there. It's actually about seeing who owns the radio station licenses. That is exactly the way to look at it. Companies that try to operate without clear frequency rights, they will just drown in interference issues and massive lawsuits. Spectrum is the ultimate barrier to entry here.
But not everyone can afford a $12 billion buyout like Amazon to get those rights right.
True. And that's why other companies like AST Space Mobile are fiercely competing by taking a different route. They are partnering directly with the terrestrial telecom companies.
Oh, so they are piggybacking on the spectrum the phone companies already own down here.
Precisely. They use the telecom spectrum to broadcast from space. It's a clever workaround, but it shows how critical those spectrum rights are.
Wow. Okay, so we've got a gold rush for spectrum. We've got thousands of satellites being fast-tracked for launch. But if multiple companies are launching tens of thousands of satellites to claim these frequency lanes, what happens to the actual physical space floating above Earth?
Yeah, that is the elephant in the room. We are running out of room.
Literally running out of space in space.
Exactly. The data on orbital debris is genuinely concerning. Low Earth orbit is incredibly crowded right now. It's essentially a shared economic resource, kind of like international waters.
Sure.
There are currently 44,870 tracked objects up there, and that amounts to over 15,800 tons of mass just whipping around the planet.
Wait, 15,800 tons?
Yes. And just to emphasize how dangerous this is getting, look at Starlink's collision avoidance data.
Okay.
Between late 2021 and mid-2022, their satellites had to perform 6,873 collision avoidance maneuvers.
So they had to dodge something almost 7,000 times.
Right, but fast forward to the period between December 2024 and May 2025.
Okay, what was the number?
That number skyrocketed to a staggering 144,404 maneuvers.
Wow. Wait, really? 144,000?
Yes.
So we're basically looking at a massive highway traffic jam, but all the cars are flying at 17,000 miles an hour. Who pays the insurance on that?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, space debris is an economic liability. It's not just an environmental issue.
Because if a satellite gets hit, it's a total loss.
Total loss. Plus, it creates a cloud of shrapnel that threatens everything else. So higher risks mean higher insurance premiums, and much higher compliance costs.
And the FCC is stepping in here too, right?
They are. The FCC released a draft called the Space Modernization Order. It demands that companies submit strict orbital debris and end-of-mission disposal plans at least 6 months before they launch.
So you have to prove you can clean up your own mess before they even let you take off.
Exactly. You cannot operate without this approval.
Right.
And the ultimate winners in this market are going to be the companies that can actually afford these massive safety and regulatory costs.
Which naturally favors the larger, well-funded mega corporations.
Always.
Man. Okay, so with all this infrastructure, all this regulation coming into play, where is this technology ultimately heading in the long term? Like beyond just fixing dead zones on our cell phones.
Well, this is where it gets a bit sci-fi, but recent analysis heavily discusses the concept of orbital data centers.
Orbital data centers, like server farms in space.
Exactly. SpaceX has floated this highly ambitious experimental idea of using up to 1 million satellites to build solar-powered AI data centers in orbit.
1 million satellites, just for AI.
Yeah. The logic is to bypass Earth's energy and cooling limits.
Yeah.
Down here, AI server farms use unbelievable amounts of power and water for cooling. In space, you have constant solar power.
Oh, that makes sense. And space is cold, so free cooling.
Well, I need to caution the everyday investor here. It is an amazing concept to solve AI's power bottlenecks, but the data shows it faces monumental challenges.
Why? Space is freezing, isn't it?
It is, but it's a vacuum, which means heat doesn't dissipate the way it does on Earth. There's no air to blow across a radiator.
Oh, right. It's like a thermos.
Exactly.
Right.
Managing the extreme heat of an AI server in a vacuum requires massive, heavy radiators. Combine that heat management with the sheer launch costs and the debris risks we just talked about.
Adding a million more objects to the 17,000-mile-an-hour traffic jam.
Right. It's a long-term theoretical option. It is not something that will generate short-term revenue.
Okay, so that is a really good takeaway for the beginner investor. Don't just look at who makes the rockets or get caught up in the sci-fi hype of space servers. Look at the whole value chain today.
The whole chain.
You want to look at the companies making the specialized microchips for the phones, the software firms writing the collision avoidance algorithms, and, as we said, the companies holding those vital spectrum rights.
That's where the real market is being built right now.
Incredible. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, and, I'd leave you and the listeners with one final thought to mull over.
Go for it.
If low Earth orbit is truly a finite natural resource with a hard limit on physical capacity for satellites and a mathematical limit on frequency spectrum, are we rapidly heading toward a future where just a few megacorporations effectively own the sky?
Oh, wow.
Right? Because if they own the sky, they dictate who gets to communicate globally and who gets left in the dark.
That is a wild thought to leave on. A monopoly over the stars. Thank you for breaking all of this down for us today. And to our listeners, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.